Me. What's my YouTuber voice? Hey guys. So today I'm going to be doing a book review. That's right, book review. This is my book. Originally, I just got this whole set up. I moved a bunch of stuff on my wall because I was like, oh, everyone has like their cute little spacey space or like talking into their camera. So I was like, I'm gonna do that too. And I got it all set up, and like this stuff right here is like I've had this lighting strip forever. It was always set to red, but I was like, I need to reconfigure this to my phone, all this stuff. It was a huge hassle. I got it all set up. I got it really aligned for my wall. Like it's intermeshed through everything, through meticulous 10 minutes of work. And I tried to reconfigure it and it didn't work. So unless you want to watch the video like this, because this is what's stuck on right now. I'm sure it's very pleasing aesthetically, visually, artistically. But yeah, that's a no-go. So anyways, this is gonna be my little thing. I don't know what to expect because I'm not just gonna do book reviews. The whole reason why I'm doing book reviews now is because I'm a writer, and I want to be better at writing. And I know the one tried and true method of getting better at writing is to read more. So, book review. Cue intro with very elaborate music here. Book review. Yeah, that's gonna fly. So, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. First of all, I love this guy. It took me like a year and a half to finish 100 Years of Solitude, but that's not because it was hard to get through. It's because I read the first 340 pages, and then I lost the book. And it was very upsetting because I was getting really into it, you know? There was the ups, the downs, the cries, I need to put this down and walk around the house for a few. But I'm not reviewing 100 Years of Solitude. And the reason why is because my mom is reading it. And by reading it, I mean she has it on her vanity, just sitting there, looking pretty. So I'm going to hold off on doing that till she actually reads it, because I want her to read it. Instead, what I did read right after 100 Years of Solitude, which, it was like 40 more pages, and I finished it. I was like, I have one other Gabriela Garcia Marquez book, and it's this one, Love in the Time of Cholera. I went into reading this being like, I want more 100 Years of Solitude. After like page 20, I was like, 100 Years of Solitude is dead. It's dead. But I fell, no pun intended, in love with this book. Passionately, madly in love. This is foreshadowing for some of the content matter of this book. My God, at first, I think, well, it's not as bad as Tolstoy. It took a minute to get into it because, this guy, he takes his time setting up the characters, and this is a very small cast. There are, the two main, I guess you could say, love interests. It's no Romeo and Juliet, that's for sure. Let me remind myself of the names. Okay, no, okay, so there's the dude that the lady marries, which is Dr. I should have prepped, because the J makes the H sound. Ooh, I'm gonna look up the pronunciation. Did one of my lights just change?
Juvenal Urbino.
Juvenal Urbino. Yeah, okay. So it starts off with the main character, Juvenal Urbino, and he's like married to the main girl. I think it's Fermina Daza, because like she doesn't even get mentioned to like what, page 25. Fermina Daza. Fermina Daza. She is the central female protagonist in this book. And then you have Florentino. I'm ballparking that. Florentino. Where are you, Florentino? Oh, Florentino Ariza. Florentino Ariza. So, the two main characters in this book are Fermina and Florentino. And so basically, it's like, starts off when Fermina is in her late 60s. Urbino, the doctor, is in his like early 70s, and he's like, shoot, I'm gonna die one day. Ugh, you know? And then he dies. It's not really a spoiler because, first of all, this book came out in the it was either 60s or 80s, or between the two. So that's when the book came out. It happens in like the first 50 pages. I mean, come on. So he dies, and she's like, well, shoot, what am I going to do now? And that's when Florentino's like, hey, I heard you just recently singled, widowed. I love you. I know it's like very comedic. That's pretty much what happened. Like the day of, or like 3 days after the funeral. He's like, but then we go all the way back 50 years before into the past. Fermina is like, I'm new in the city. I'm the quirky girl. I am. She's everything. She's pompous. She's haughty. Haughty. She has an air of haughtiness, which was a word I picked up on Marquez using a lot to describe her and her actions. She's always haughty. She's very haughty. Haughty, haughty, haughty. And she kind of gives this air of, oh, she comes from a wealthy background, you know? Supposedly. And so then there's Florentino, and the reason that he only gets introduced to her is because, and by the way, Florentino like straight up comes from the slums. Like he lives, I want to say the slave quarters, but don't quote me on that. He works at this telegraph office, and their first time he sees her is when he goes to her father's place, giving him a telegraph. And as he's leaving, he passes by her while she's like sewing. He's like,
I'm in love.
and he starts writing her letter, this one letter, and this one letter becomes 80 pages
Yeesh.
of him being like, I love you, I love you, these are all the ways that you're so perfect, oh my god. I mean, like, he's pretty much writing out his own Colleen Hoover novel. I do not like her writing, but it is funny. He's about to like give this girl and his first opportunity his Colleen Hoover novel dedicated to his declaration of love to her, and his mother's like, no, 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 keep it simple. You want her to come to you. Basically, he disregards his mom's advice, but instead he does edit down his 80-page novel to one page of his declaration of love, to which he finally finds an opportunity to just give it to her when I want to say she's alone, and she's like, come back here when this same thing happens and I'm finally alone. And so they play this pretty much this game of back and forth where he's like, I love you. I love you so much. You are the love of my life. Oh my god. And she's just like, okay, cool. Because like her whole thing is, I'm trying to protect my heart. And he's like, I am giving you everything. It kind of goes on like that for a while until her father, he finally finds out. And the first thing he does is, by the way, her mother died. Her mother died when she was like a young girl. And so she kind of has this maternal mother, which is her aunt, her mother's sister. And when he finds out, he's like, by the way, your aunt banished. Banished. Get out. So she leaves. Fermina goes into this like whole quiet teenage field angst rage, and the first thing the father does is he gets his pistol. He's like, I'm gonna find this boy. I'm gonna find this fucking boy. And he does. He finds him, and he's like, young man, I would like to have a word with you. So he's like, mm-hmm. Okay. He's like, I want you to just be like, look, we can't do this because I want my daughter to end up with a real prestigious man. The most prestige of prestigious. And he's like, well, that's her choice, not mine. And he's like, mother, I got a pistol. I will bang bang you right here. There's this like whole like semi-internal monologue. It's in third person, by the way. But there's this like semi-internal monologue where he's like, he knows that you have to die for your values, so he will die for his love. And this kid is like 14, by the way, at this point in the book. He's like, I mean, shoot me if you want, but that's her choice. And he's like, fine, I see how it is. Basically, after like 3 days of Fermina basically locked in her room And this isn't like she was locked in there like a Rapunzel style. It's more like she locked herself in because she thinks everything right now. She's very haughty about it, very haughty. And so her father's like,
Get up.
we're going. We're getting the donkeys. We're gonna go up the coast. We're just gonna travel during the Civil War. And you know what?
You are gonna fall out of love by the time we come back.
And she's like,
No, I love this man.
they were trying to like arrange like a pseudo secret wedding with Florentino's mother help, but you know that didn't work out because clearly Fermina's father found out, and so they go on this whole journey because Florentino is like kind of in that whole like working in the telegraph department. He's like he's able to contact her secretly, and so they exchanged secret communications. Basically, I'm not going to get into it. Several years pass. She comes back to town, and it's like, oh, I missed meeting her when she got back. Like, he's like, how am I going to introduce myself to her? I'm 17, she's 19 or 20. She's like, where is he? Why hasn't he greeted me yet? Does he even know I'm back? Oh my god. At some point, he's out there. He's stalking her because like he falls asleep at a cafe, and then he's like the vibrations of her step and the smell of her fragrance woke me up, so I started following her through the town, and it gets to the point where he's like, oh, this is my moment. I'm like, hello, Mrs. She turns around and it's like this whole glorious haughty spectacle looks him up and down. All she has to say is, poor man. She's over it. She's over it. She wants nothing to do with him. And he's like, blah. Their communication stops. He is madly in love with her. And this book is funny and also so tragic at the same moment. It is all over the place, literally. I'm not even going through half of the stuff that happens in this book. It is all over the place. But basically, long story short, at least in their young 20s, Fermina finds the doctor. They get married after the doctor's like very persistent about trying to like get her father's blessing. She's like, because she doesn't want any of it, but at the same time, I think like secretly she's like, oh, but if I'm not married by the time I'm 21, then I'm gonna be like a spinster, and then I'm gonna be like frowned upon in society. Like there's a lot of like internal and external pressures on her to get married. Because her whole father's attitude is like, I want the best life for my daughter that I could never have. And that's why I'm working so hard. Sort of. To make this possible for her. What it ends up coming down to for Fermina is it's all appearance for her. It's all appearance, while Florentino, in some very strange ways, all passion and soul and heart. She gets married to the doctor, and while this is going on, Florentino is like in the midst of the biggest heartbreak of his life. He's eating flowers, drinking perfume. He is a mess. He is a mess. His mother pulls some strings. She's like, you're going to go on this cruise and you're going to work upstate in some other country because like you need to get away while they're getting married, or because she's like, he might die. And so he goes on this cruise, which, long story short, he kind of loses his virginity. I'm going to leave it at that because there's so much more to talk about there. So like, yeah, that's just a little hint of what you'd get into about how he loses his virginity, because it's sheesh. And when it happens, he's like, wait, because before that he was not sexual at all, and now he's like, wait, I'm still in love with Fermina, but I can use sex as a way to distract myself. And he basically, what happens is he stumbles upon boy ideology. As a young boy, he quickly grows into the blossom of a man. He starts journaling all his sexual encounters, to which the narrator's like, he had a recorded of 622 different sexual partners, and oh my god, like literally man. And he kind of just he basically climbed up through the social ladder. It goes on about like how his life without her, but he's still in love with her, but he's whoring himself out, whoring, literally, to every woman in the country. The kind of, and it talks about like Fermina's sort of the kind of theme here is she, instead of choosing like absolute young adult passion, she goes for the kind of safer route where she picks a very safe man, but he's very emotionally distant. Like I mean, that's why he's a doctor, because like he's this huge spectacle throughout the country and even kind of internationally renowned because he's a very intelligent man. He's very socially equipped. He is very pragmatic and just like he's there for his society. And it's like it discusses how he like single-handedly improves the society and the town and the country that they live in by so many degrees. And even through all that, he's very emotionally distant. Like they have a 10 feet apart marriage kind of deal where she's at home taking care of everything, and he's just kind of being a doctor, and his schedule is always like he's always doing stuff, which leads. I mean, he eventually he has an affair with a pastor, so I'm assuming it has. It's speculated that he also cheats on her with a second pastor that she didn't know about, but my gosh. And so eventually, as we're going through how they live their lives separately for the 50 years, and during this entire time, he is still in love with Fermina Daza. And Florentino cannot let her go. Even though he's like sleeping with all these women and he's having pseudo relationships, but he never gets married. Probably has illegitimate children around, as he was also an illegitimate child as well, whatever. And it gets to the point where he's like, I'm not even going to spoil the end, because the end it gets very messed up. Where his like it's pretty much like like Freud talks about like lust and love and how like there are two extremes where it's like you have you're apathetic towards everything, or you let lust and love drive you mad, and he's on that very that mad spectrum of lust and love where it's like that's as an old man, oh my god. But I mean, if you pick up the book, Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, if you pick up the book, you'll find out. It's very it's just like the last like 50 pages is a very steep decline. I mean, like before that, he got a woman killed, sort of by accident, but sort of like I remember when I got to that part, I had to read over that paragraph. So I'm not going to say what happened. But when I got to that paragraph, I had to read it over 3 times. Because at first I was like, did he to himself? Did she to him? He to her. He to her. Whew. It was wild. But yeah, the last 50 pages and her haughtiness reemerges after like tabloid magazines start talking about her, and she just lets herself go. She lets herself go, and she's like, Florentino. After like a long correspondence, he's like, "This fuck man's ready for you, baby," and she's like, oh, "Fine." And so they kind of officially start their illicit love affair that has been 50 years in the making. And it ends on a cruise. A never-ending cruise. This book made me laugh. This book made me literally gasp. There were times where I literally gasped reading this. If you're looking for something that kind of covers the full range of emotion, well written, of course, well written. But I think there's a lot you could take away from this book, not just as like entertainment, but also just like philosophically. Especially because he really delves into like the two extremes of love, like the mad, passionate love, but also the cold, distant kind of love. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all any of us can ever hope for. Finding a nice, solid love that's in between that mad passion and that cold, distant. Because too much of one thing is too much, and too little of another is just not enough. And this is coming from a man. I think most of his life he had like one salt. Like a lot of like these famous authors, they kind of like they jump from woman to woman, or they have very tense relationships with the man they're married to. I mean, the whole stereotype about writers. They can't be held down, or there's issues, or I mean, like the most common thing is that they're an alcoholic. I'm going through a list of the alcoholic writers in my head right now. But I mean, that's to say the least. Gabriel Garcia Marquez was one of the classic. For me, he's a classic. I think his books deserve to be remembered. He's one of the authors who really he had a full solid head that he kept well on his shoulders. There's nothing you can really ask for more in life. A happy marriage, a solid head on your shoulders, and good ass writing. Like he's also very good about the world building aspect, because he kind of there's this time period, at least from the two books I've read by him, which is 100 Years of Solitude and Love in the Time of Cholera. He's very good about talking about how times change, and not like, oh, back then things were better, but more like how like literally like a nation changes throughout the progression of time and technology. And like, so pretty much like it like the when the book starts time wise, like people are still riding horse-drawn carriages. The sewers are kind of like flooding throughout the streets because there's no real proper sewers. Sanitation's a mess. And a lot of this, like, the doctor helps fix, because like he's like, look, I am a doctor. I know what's actually going on. I know how to like make these people's lives better. But like he's very good about subtly talking about how things change, from like better sewage, better travel, like when the trains come in, the first hot air balloons talked about in here. I'm sure it was the actual first one, but like the first one they experienced, to like eventually, like when it's like present day in the book, it's like they're finally driving around cars, and cars are becoming more common. It's subtle because it shows the progression of time without saying. And then 5 years later. This is. I'm gonna read. Oh, my foot. I'm gonna read some of the quotes I underlined. This is to show off my massive intellect. He knew he was identical to him, and to the awareness had now been added the awful consciousness that he was also as mortal. I know, I'm very deep. I'm very deep. And realized that death was not only a permanent probability, as he had always believed, but an immediate reality. I'm so deep. Oh. In his opinion, a liberal president was exactly the same as a conservative president, but not as well dressed. I am so pointedly so deep. Only then did he understand to what extent he had been an easy victim to the charitable deceptions of nostalgia. Oh, that hit hard because I'm so deep. But he allowed himself to be swayed by his conviction that human beings are not born once and for all on the day their mothers give birth to them, but that life obliges them over and over again to give birth to themselves. I'm so deep! And she discovered with great delight that one does not love one's children just because they are one's children, but because of the friendship formed while raising them. I'm deep! The problem in public life is learning to overcome terror. The problem in married life is learning to overcome boredom. Oh my god, did you hear that? That's the sound of me being very deep. Oh, this one actually has a little annotation next to it that says, "Fuck boy." But it would not have occurred to him or any man to think of these as diseases. They were only the spoils of war. Fuck boy? It was not possible to live together in any other way, or love in any other way, and nothing in this world was more difficult than love. You hear that? That's the sound of the human condition, which I understand, because I am fucking deep. In the deliriums of passion he promised everything, but when it was over, everything was left for later. Oh, deepness. But after our last war, just at the turn of the century, the conservative regime consolidated its colonial customs, and funeral rites became so expensive that only the wealthiest could pay for them. Class understanding deepness. Oh, yeah, no, that does not get read. That's a surprise. This is selected readings with moi. Okay. Ooh. To conclude my review of Love in the Time of Cholera, I am going to rate it probably a 9.8 out of 12 Tina Feys. Yes, so you heard right. This gets a 9.8 out of 12 Tina Feys. That is my official grading rubric, and it is mine, and you can't take it. I think there's a lot to improve on here. I'm not going to tell him what, but he could have improved on a lot, and that's why it's a 9.8. And I am currently reading Don Quixote right now. But I'm probably going to review one of the other books I finished recently. Probably one of the Graham Greene books, because, oh my god. And yeah, thank you.